Like the colors in the rainbow, so too are the gays of our lives. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another fabulous episode of the Gays of Our Lives. I'm your host. My name is Sean Connell. I'm the president of the Fall River Pride Committee, and among other hats that I wear. And today I am speaking with a fabulous coworker and colleague of mine today named Allison. But I will let Allison introduce yourself before we jump into today's topic.
Thank you. I'm Allison Hague. I'm the program manager of the Family Resource Center at Family Service Association here in Fall River.
Fabulous. Yeah. So, and my main job, I work at Recreation. We are actually partnered over at Recreation. And today, in honor of LGBT History Month, we want to talk about some resources that Fall River is working on. And I want to kind of talk a little bit about LGBT History Month and what that means. So I want to kind of start with one of the biggest things that we need in the LGBT community is allies. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of wondering, what are your thoughts on what does it mean to be an ally?
I think just to be an ally really simply is just human kindness, unconditionally, being non-judgmental, empathetic, being respectful to other humans, all people. As an ally, you believe in equal rights for all. You're also understanding of the LGBTQ community, the history of discrimination that those have faced earlier in history, but also still today. Mm-hmm. I think as an ally, you also have to listen, just empathetically, just let people share their voice. You could ask about pronouns, if you're comfortable with that, if the person that you're speaking with is comfortable about that, and really about what support do they need as an individual. Mm-hmm. So how can we help?
I think, we had one of our episodes, we talked a lot about pronouns. And I remember another one of my colleagues at Recreation asked, well, why do I need to put pronouns in my email signature? Mm-hmm. Like I'm a female, and I believe I'm a female. I'm okay with being a female. In that case, the term is cisgender, mm-hmm. right? And the idea there is it's a quick thing that you can do as an ally to signify to someone else who might be seeing your email that you're comfortable understanding the importance of pronouns and what that can look like for somebody else on the outside.
Absolutely.
So that's a huge part of just a little thing that you can do that can have such a big impact. We've talked about that before, that using someone's chosen pronouns can reduce suicide ideation in half. Mm-hmm. Right? So it can be it's a big part of our identity and who we are, who we present ourselves as to the world, right?
Absolutely.
So I also want to give some time here to talk a little bit about the resources mm-hmm. that the Family Resource Center offers. So do you want to kind of talk about some of the resources you guys have, what you guys do?
Sure. So the Family Resource Centers are a network across the state of Massachusetts. So actually every county has at least one center. In Bristol County, we're lucky. We actually have 3 Family Resource Centers. Family Service Association has the contract here in Fall River. United Way of Greater New Bedford has the New Bedford site, and Old Colony Y has the site in Taunton and Attleboro. Mm-hmm. And we're really a place that is free for all to access to help get connected to resources, support. We're also part of legislation law change with Child in Need of Services, which was the CHINS. They decriminalized a lot of those laws for youth and children and families, and it was renamed Child Requiring Assistance. So that's how we came to be. We are funded as part of the Executive Office of Health and Human Services in the Department of Children and Families. So we have, families have access to us to have a free complete family strengths and need assessment done, and that helps us identify the strengths of the family but also the needs, and we help get them connected to various services and support. So we'll help families navigate housing issues, rental assistance, mortgage assistance, utility assistance. We'll help families get connected to mental health counseling, psychiatry, childcare, you name it, kind of everything. And what we look at is we try not to duplicate anything that exists in the community already, but we try to offer resources and support to fill the gaps. And so when we opened in 2015, we really noticed the gap of services for our LGBTQ youth, children, families. And so we've always strived to help by our collaborative partnerships with those in the community who are kind of more of the experts in the area, to welcome them into our center to create a safe space for those families to receive support and feel safe and valued and loved and empowered, and however we can help support them, and also educate ourselves and learn more and strengthen our allyship for the community.
I think one of the reasons, well, there's 1,000 reasons why I love you so much, but I think one of the my biggest things with the Family Resource Center is you are not narrowly defining what family is or looks like, which is really important to the LGBT community, because for a really long time, there is a lot of strict rules of what a family should or shouldn't look like, what even is counted legally as a family. Right. LGBT families have existed for centuries across cultures, but whether or not they're recognized as even being legitimate is a challenge, and it's been a challenge for a really long time. Part of LGBT History Month was recognizing where the LGBT movement started here in America. It's in lots of other places, it started in lots of other ways. But here in America, there was the Stonewall riots of 1969, right through the first LGBT March on Washington, which was in 1979. And that took place in October, which was part of the reason why October was chosen for LGBT History Month. Because LGBT families, right, we form families very similar to what a nuclear family can look like. Absolutely. But there's a lot of jokes and misunderstandings of if there's two dads or there's two moms, and who's the masculine one, who's the feminine one. And it's almost kind of those gendered kind of tropes that can be really limiting to LGBT families, because there's lots of ways that families are created. There's single moms, there's single dads, there's LGBT dads and moms, there's families. Our last episode, I had a beautiful trans couple here, my mixed MX LGBTQ Fall River. So there's a lot of ways that families form, and I think the fact that you are always open to that with your equality show, you've always been open to me and my LGBT students and clients, is really, really important for us. And so I wanted to give you a little bit of space also to plug a little bit of an Affirming task force that you work with.
Yes, so our agency, the Family Resource Center, is part of Family Service Association. And so they had really over the last couple of years have received different grants to kind of strengthen the clinical services and therapeutic services offered at the agency for LGBTQ. So they had we've always kind of had a coalition, and recently it was renamed, and I love the name, and it's called the Affirming Task Force. So that is facilitated by one of our clinicians. Her name is Ashley Delgado, and that's held monthly. And so if anyone is interested in joining, all are welcome, and she does a great job at creating a space during those meetings to get a little bit of everything. There's like a history component for that month. There's resources. She uses multimedia stuff with songs and videos and presenters, and a place for us to also share resources together and support one another in that coalition task force. Yeah,
because I've got to, Ashley, if you're watching out there, I got to get you on here too, because I'd love to have you talk about it more.
I think she could, she'll speak more eloquently than I, but we're really happy to have that. And,
Because I also love that it's called the Affirming Task Force, because, right, so one of the things that LGBT people are looking for is, sexuality and gender affirming care, right? And what that means is to kind of truly acknowledge that we exist, right? That we're not this kind of, weird or lewd abomination that exists as some sort of aberrant, misstep from society, but that we've actually been here for a really long time. Right? So to try to add in a few more history pieces here. So if people have ever heard of Alan Turing, who was an LGBT man who actually helped break the codes against the Nazis, right? He was one of the founders of computer code, and he was chemically castrated by the British government for being gay. Right, and that took a toll on his life, and he ended up taking his own life. But his code and his impact on history, needs to be looked at and celebrated in spite and despite of the fact that he was gay. So I think that kind of comes around to what I want to kind of ask you a little bit personally. So why did you get into, this LGBT work? What does it mean for you?
So I think, thankfully, I was raised by a family that is just shared to be accepting of all, and not just accepting, but inclusive, and that everyone has a story and everyone should be valued. And then I was in college, and my middle brother, I have 3 brothers. I'm my mom's only daughter at this time, and he came out as gay. And I remember for him, I remember for myself, I wasn't feeling challenged by his, like the sharing of identifying who he was. But I remember more, I was fearful for him. He was in college at Johnson & Wales in Rhode Island. Recently, the young man was murdered in the West. And so, Matthew Shepard. So I just remember being fearful about how was society going to embrace my brother. I knew he was already embraced by our family, but through him, I really was starting to educate myself more about what does this road look like for him now? How can I advocate? And through his journey, I've had other friends and family members who have felt comfortable coming out. I think, thankfully, again, we didn't have family rejection, which I think is such a huge risk factor for many of our young adults and youth. It just leads to many other negative consequences when you're feeling rejected. And now we have another generation. So my youngest brother has 6 kids, and I have
6 kids.
6 kids with the youngest set of twins.
Right.
And so I have a niece who is identifying as trans. And, she started that journey, an expression at a pretty young age. She's 9 now. And I just felt it was my duty to help her navigate what would be coming for her, and making her feel she had support and love and resources, and also helping my family. So it's been a journey for everyone. Thankfully, my brother was just very loving right from the get-go and bought her first dress. And my sister-in-law had some struggles. This was, Elsie was the 4th boy born for my sister-in-law, and so it's been a journey for her. It's a journey for everyone, so yeah, I feel like it's my mission, and if within my own family, I know other families are experiencing the same thing. And I think just that rejection piece, you never want people to feel less than what they deserve.
Yeah. So that brings me back to 3 points here, because I always got points for things. That's why I have a whole TV show. So the first point here goes back to that affirming piece, right? Because the rejection and isolation that LGBT people can feel can manifest in really powerful ways. And it manifests a lot of times in a lot of mental health conditions around, extreme depression, bipolar, anxiety. That's not to say that straight people don't face that, okay? Commenters, I see you. I'm just saying that there's that extra layer of what society judges as legitimate. And a lot of people do not see trans people as legitimate. A lot of people think being gay is a phase, or even being trans is a phase. That, kids who are younger LGBT kids, they can't possibly know anything about themselves or their bodies, But that's not true, right? We start to develop our sense of selves pretty early on developmentally. And that goes to my second point here, which was National Coming Out Day, right? So one of the reasons why more families have LGBT people in their families is because more people are slowly starting to feel comfortable coming out and are claiming their authentic selves, right? It's not about, this concept that LGBT people are trying to shove being gay down your throats, because I hear that a lot, right? It is a declaration and a march towards a seat at the table, which is all it's ever been. And I think the fact that National Coming Out Day, October 11th, also all part of the LGBT History Month, we actually have some events we're going to talk about coming up at our center for National Coming Out Day, is so pivotal. Because, Fall River, in our little corner of the world here, when I was growing up, my representative was Barney Frank. And Barney Frank was one of the first LGBT congressmen out. He came out in 1988, and it was wild to see that, as I kind of come of age, that I had that representative. Former city councilor and school committee member Steve Camara, who's worked with the Pride Committee and done a lot of amazing work in the city, he came out in the 70s. He came out around the same time Harvey Milk did, right? And when Harvey Milk came out, he was assassinated, right? Because there's still, and that was only in the 70s. Like, this is not ancient history, right? Like, my mom graduated from high school in the 70s. This is not like generations and generations ago. That's why we're trying to take October to celebrate this history, to understand that all Harvey Milk wanted to do, right, was help his city, right, be a representative for the LGBT people. He was in San Francisco, right, which was kind of a beacon there. So there's so much history there. And then you also mentioned a name I want to bring back up, which was Matthew Shepard. For those of you who haven't heard of Matthew Shepard was very brutally murdered in the mid-1990s in Laramie, Wyoming, by two men who specifically looked to kill and harm an LGBT person. That was actually where a part of hate crime legislation came from, because what it does is it adds a layer of malicious intent, that it's not just murder, that you sought to murder them because they were gay. Right? And there's a lot of culture and history around that moment, because it was very galvanizing in the 90s to see a young gay man be brutalized in this way. I mean, you guys can look it up. There's a song called Scarecrow about it, because he was left on fence posts. The girlfriends of the two men specifically testified that they were looking to do this, because a lot of people have asked, well, why is there hate crime laws? That's why there's hate crime laws, because that malicious intent really shouldn't play a place in society anymore. We are just fighting for our right at the table. We are just regular families where your brothers, your sisters, your nieces, your family members, right? And that's why, the fact that we have family resource centers, like, I could never imagine as a youth that I could go to a family resource center, because I was very ashamed of who I was. My father was not very accepting. I've talked about that and stuff. So to see how far we've come makes me undeniably happy. But to know how far we still have to go requires more of this work. So that's where we're at. So to plug for some of our new events, so for National Coming Out Day, the Fall River Pride Committee, the Family Resource Center, and the Joni's Place, which is an organization outside of, within the Balanced Learning Center, we all came together, and we're actually dedicating a community space over at 45 Rock Street in Recreation. In Recreation, we actually have our own new program coming out called Safe Spaces. And all of these kind of organizations are joining force together for National Coming Out Day, where we are going to be painting a beautiful mural in one of our rooms. We're going to have all these arts and crafts. We're going to be painting, all of our logos. We also are going to be opening up a gender-affirming closet, so to speak, right? So that we can open up the closet so we can come out of the closet kind of deal. Where we'll have all sorts of gender-affirming care, makeup, things that trans and non-binary people might use for their wardrobes. So that dedication is happening Tuesday, October 11th, 5 to 7 p.m. At 45 Rock Street. So we would love to have anyone who's watching to come by and enjoy that event with us. Because again, that ability to kind of come out, to have these connections, I think is so unbelievably pivotal to what our future looks like.
Absolutely.
Right? Because National Coming Out Day and LGBT History Month is a look back to our past and where we've come. Right? There's still other pioneers like Laverne Cox, right, who is an incredible actress. Kim Petras, for some of the younger folks, who is like the new queen of pop. She's unbelievable, right? But she was assigned male at birth, right? So there's lots of LGBT and trans people in society, in our communities, that I think if more people just took a step back and recognized that, they would see the rich cultural history there.
Absolutely.
Right? So a couple of the questions I have for you is, what are some of the other upcoming things or events that you would want to kind of plug for or talk about? Because I have a couple too, but I don't want to take the whole floor, but make sure that the Family Resource Center things can get a spotlight here too.
Sure. So besides of all the resource navigation, we do offer a bunch of different groups. So like you said, we define family many different ways. And so we have many grandparents who are actually raising their grandchildren. So we do offer an English-speaking grandparents raising grandchildren support group. So actually the grandparents, the kids all come, we have dinner, we have activities, and the grandparents get to meet by themselves. It's kind of a nice little respite area for them to have support, peer-to-peer support. We bring in presenters and different things, and we've actually started offering that in Spanish as well. Awesome. So that's happening. Another gap in the community was access to parent education groups. So we offer many different styles of evidence-based parent education groups. So those happen quarterly. Again, you can just connect with us to have access to those. Everything is free again. We work with many different community partners as well. So we host we host lots of different community partners for groups. So we have different grief groups that are offered through our collaboration with Hope Health and Hospice. We work with the BAMC Parent Information Network, so they have a parent support group for families. We work with Recreation around high set, getting their, it's like the other name for a GED, high school diploma. So having all of that available is just really helpful for families to know that they can come and access that stuff for free. And then we really try to participate in any community events, because there's still so many families who don't know we're here in the city. And research keeps saying families don't know where to go for help. So if we get out to these events, we're tabling, we're letting people see us face to face, and learning about what we can offer them. So
yeah, I mean, that is one of the reasons I brought you on the show, because I think the work that you guys do is absolutely incredible. And do you guys still have your elder LGBT group? Is that still up and running?
Yes. So the clinician I spoke about, Ashley Delgado, facilitates a older adult support group for LGBTQ. So she had been doing that, I believe, virtually, and so we can get that information if anyone is interested. Definitely.
Because I wanted to bring that up specifically because, so one of the things that happens with a lot of LGBT work, with a lot of nonprofit work, are there are little silos, right? And we're trying to break down some of those silos. But one of the differences is age, right? So a quick story of why this is so powerful to me. So when I was, coming up many years ago now too, I was 18 and I was at a gay club and I was dancing and having a great time. And there was this older gentleman, definitely older, maybe 60, 70 years old. And he was just like in the back of the club, just like staring. And you know me, I'm very friendly, I'm very open. So my bubbly self goes right up to him and I'm like, what are you doing here? Right? Because I was just being sassy and silly at the same time, but not realizing my mind was about to be blown. So he was, he kind of took a breath and he's like, you have no idea what it is like to look at you guys be able to do this out loud. Right, to have a gay club in Providence, right, to dance and have your little shop boys and to be out loud, and you could be outside and no one's bothering you, and you have the Pride Parade in Boston and Providence, and he's like he lost all of his friends to AIDS, right? He was there when the AIDS crisis first hit the ground. Remember, LGBT history, AIDS was originally called GRIDS, that it was gay-related immunodeficiency syndrome, that it was specific, that only gay people got and transmitted AIDS, which of course we know is not true. That's not how that works. It's a bloodborne illness. Right. So plenty of people can contract it in lots of different ways: drug use, unprotected sex, all things that straight people do too, right? And the government at the time in the 80s just didn't respond to it. Hundreds of thousands of people died. It's still a worldwide pandemic. So I remember just to this thinking he was just going to be like, oh, I was looking for, a partner or something, but to kind of have my mind blown of that perspective. Because I feel like, so now me here in my 30-something, I'm working with kids who are 20 years younger than me, but we have these LGBT elders 20 years older than me, who really, between the two, can really have to kind of remember where we came from, so we can focus on where we're at and really create a vision for where we want to go. And I think one of the ways we do that is by bringing all of these kind of groups together, young, middle-aged, elder, because all of them have something to offer in this fight for justice and equality and all of these kind of things.
Yeah.
So for instance, some more events that we can plug for. So the Fall River Pride Committee, Safe Spaces, and Joni's Place, we're having a little trunk or treat spooky costume party on Saturday, October 22nd, 3 to 6. So it'll be a fabulous time for all K through 12 aged LGBT youth and their friends and allies to come hang out at 45 Rock Street. Like I said, we're going to play some games, we'll have candy. And then a little bit later that night, for our older crowd, our 18-plus crowd, we're going to be showing the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The Rocky Horror Picture Show, for those of you guys who don't know, I can't even tell you. It needs to be experienced. The Rocky Horror Picture Show is kind of a cult classic in LGBT film and history. Again, a big part of our history, to have people who are transvestites and all of these other kind of these sexual minorities in this kind of campy sci-fi musical. It is all those things, campy sci-fi musical. So we're going to have a really great time, and that'll be the same night, October 22nd at 8 p.m. We're going to have a little get-together and social, and then we're going to show the movie around 10, so that way we can be doing the time warp at midnight.
Nice.
I can't tell you any more than that. I've already said too much. So there's that. And then, of course, Recreation, my main source of employment. We're having a wonderful Halloween party. I want to say 3 to 5 on Monday, the 31st, on actual Halloween day.
I know.
Where I could be off on the time, but you can check gfrrec.org. We have a big flyer for it. If you drive by 45 Rock Street, we have our big sign outside for it. And that's going to be another fabulous kind of big celebration of Halloween, and we'll have a costume party, and we're going to decorate cookies, and we have a spooky hallway. It's going to be amazing.
Might be 5 to 7.
It might be 5 to 7. Yeah, it might be 5 to 7. I think you're right. So double check the time. If you come early, you'll still see me. I'll be there. So, I'm going to look fabulous. I can't give away too much of my outfit because it's going to be surprises. But yeah, so I find it beautifully ironic that the month that you dress up as somebody else for fun is the same kind of coincidence with National Coming Out Day and National LGBT History Month, right? And keep in mind, National LGBT History Month started in 1994 because of a teacher in Missouri. They created, they put together a little committee to celebrate the achievements of the LGBT marches on Washington, how far we've come from Stonewall to family recognition. So there's just so much history here. I mean, I literally could talk about it for a lot longer, but we only got a couple minutes left. So in the last couple minutes left, I would love for you, if you have any kind of notes or wisdom, or what have you learned from doing this kind of work that people and their families can take away from?
Really, I think going back to just listening, like everyone has their individual voice. So giving people an opportunity to share who they are, their preferences, what they need, and trying to help them access that. We have a long way to go. We're fortunate to live here in Massachusetts and work in Massachusetts, but there's a lot going on nationally that makes you feel like you're going backwards a little in history. And just being open. I think what I see a lot with parents is sometimes the understanding is not there. They don't want to make their child feel rejected or less than, or it's just they have to kind of learn and be educated and have that opportunity and to process themselves, to learn about what their child needs. And
I really think it goes back to the kind of points you originally had to around kindness and empathy.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to understand everything about gender identity and sexuality to be a partner in allyship, right? All you have to do is let somebody figure it out for themselves. Big no-no, never out somebody, right? That is not a thing that we do. National Coming Out Day is about people being able to claim that for themselves, their own authenticity. Are we going to make mistakes? Are we going to bumble? Are we going to go back and forth with our sexuality or who we like or the relationships to our bodies? Yes. But if we're going to have it a little bit harder because society still has some of these judgments on LGBT, it's best not to start that in the home. It's best to start the kindness and compassion and understanding at the home so they can use those same tools to navigate the larger world that they're going to be up against. Not just in LGBT History Month, but in every month of the year.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank everybody so much. My fabulous videographer, Michelle. I want to thank Allison so much for coming in. Again, if you want any of these dates, they'll all be posted on our gfrrec.org website, the Joni's Place Facebook, Family Resource Center Facebook, Greater Fall River Recreations Facebook. And we will see you all this month for a spooktacular LGBT History Month.